Imagine waking up one morning and realizing you've been carrying a weight you never signed up for. Guilt for things you can't change, regrets for roads you didn't take, what-ifs that replay on a loop in your mind. That weight sits heavy on your chest, steals your energy, muzzles your smile, and whispers lies that you're not enough. But what if I told you there's an art, a simple, powerful practice that can lift that burden, clear the fog from your thoughts, and let your heart finally breathe free? Welcome to The Art of Letting Go. In the next few moments, you're about to discover why clinging hurts you more. Holding on to old wounds isn't a sign of strength. It's an invisible prison that steals your joy and stunts your growth. When you replay painful memories, it's like drinking poison and hoping someone else will suffer. How to become the observer of your own pain. With one simple shift, naming your emotions, you step back from the storm inside you. Picture yourself looking at anger, guilt, or fear as clouds passing through a vast sky, instead of being swept away in their fury. That moment of pause, that is your freedom's first inhale. The secret ritual that releases regret. Imagine holding a balloon tied to your heart. With each breath, you untie the knot and watch your pain float up, and away. It sounds almost too gentle to be true, but this small daily ceremony transforms heavy burdens into light lessons. Real stories, real transformation. Meet Neha, who let go of a toxic love that dimmed her shine. Meet Rohit and Sushma, who found forgiveness as a gift they gave themselves. Ordinary souls, just like you, who chose courage over comfort and discovered a life beyond their past. Your roadmap to inner peace. By the end of this journey, you'll hold 4 powerful tools. Externalization, watching your emotions from the audience. Self-compassion, speaking. Chapter 1, The Art of Letting Go. Have you ever felt your heart and mind locked in a fierce struggle? One part of you begging to release a painful memory, while the other stubbornly clings on. In every life, there comes a moment when we face things that hurt us deeply. A broken friendship, a harsh word that still echoes, a regret that steals our joy. Yet somehow we become prisoners of our own past. We replay old conversations, scroll through photographs that sting, and revisit moments we wish we could erase. Why? Because letting go, as easy as the words sound, is a subtle art. An art that most of us never truly learn. When we carry the weight of yesterday into today, we find ourselves exhausted, trapped, and unable to breathe freely. And so, Chapter 1 begins by recognizing this universal burden, the heavy chain of memories, regrets that we drag behind us like an anchor. Think of your mind as an overgrown garden. In one corner lie beautiful, blooming flowers, your happiest times, your proudest achievements. But in another corner, brambles of fear and resentment have sprouted, twisting around every ray of joy. Those brambles choke the light of hope. They steal nutrients from your soul. And yet day after day we water them with worry. We feed them with what-ifs and if-onlys. If only I had spoken up, we say. If only I had stayed strong. Every replay is another sip of that bitter tea. We pat ourselves on the back for remembering, believing that somehow by keeping the memory alive, we honor its lesson. But instead, we trap ourselves in a cycle of pain. Imagine the story of Neha, an ambitious young woman who chased her dreams with fierce determination. She gave up evening outings with friends, sacrificed free weekends for extra work, and poured her heart into building a career. Yet, amid her triumphs, she could not let go of a relationship that blinded. Next comes permission. To feel without judgment. Feelings are neither good nor bad. They simply are messages from our heart. Guilt tells us we betrayed someone's trust. Regret shows us where we missed our own boundaries. Rather than label those feelings shameful, treat them as clouds passing through a vast sky. I feel guilt, you might say. I notice regret. By naming the emotion, you externalize it. You create distance between you and the feeling. You are not your guilt. You are the observer of guilt. From this space, you can ask yourself, is this memory serving me now? If the answer is no, begin the art of ceremonial release. Picture yourself holding a balloon. That painful memory is tied to it. As you breathe in, feel your heart soften. As you breathe out, untie the knot and watch the balloon drift upward into a clear blue sky. You might feel a sudden emptiness, a strange mix of relief and fear. That is normal. Your mind is surprised by your own courage. Welcome the silence that follows. Let it fill your lungs and remind you that you are alive, that life continues in this precious, present moment. In the early days of practice, you may stumble. You might find yourself retying the balloon's knot when you least expect it, triggered by a song, an anniversary, or a passing comment. Be gentle with yourself. Every time you notice the knot, congratulate yourself on the awareness. Then, untie again. Repetition is the essence of art. Just as a musician practices scales, you must practice release. Over time, you become more skilled at noticing the reaction, at naming the feeling, and at setting it free. Chapter 1 also teaches that letting go requires heart-centered forgiveness, first for others, and then for yourself. Forgiveness is not condoning a hurtful act. It is choosing not to carry the weight of resentment. Picture forgiveness as a key that unlocks the press-on door of your own making. With each act of forgiveness, you regain more of your own life. You replace the cold, heavy chains of anger with the warm, golden light of compassion. And when you extend that light to yourself, you prove that you deserve the same kindness you freely offer to others. As you practice, you will notice subtle shifts. That ache in your chest softens, the knot in your stomach untangles, and the world appears a little brighter. You wake up with curiosity instead of dread. You greet the morning sun with wonder, not with the question, "What reminder of my past will today bring?" You begin to carry fewer what-ifs in your pockets and more why-nots in your heart. By the end of Chapter 1, you understand that letting go is not a one-time event. It is a journey, a daily ritual of mindfulness and self-compassion. You learn to catch yourself before an old pattern drags you down. You build new habits, a moment of pause, a naming of emotion, a conscious breath, a silent release. You learn to trust that life can feel light again. And every time you untie another memory balloon, you claim more freedom. So, dear listener, as you step into this art, remember, you are an artist of your own life. Your canvas is the present moment, and your brush is awareness. Paint your days with the bright colors of possibility. Let the shadows of your past become distant silhouettes, and let your heart soar, unburdened, free to feel joy, to love again, and to embrace the infinite beauty of now. Chapter 2. Breaking the Chains of Negativity. Have you ever noticed how a tiny voice inside your head can grow into a roar that drowns out every other thought? In Chapter 2, we explore the hidden prison of negativity, those silent chains we wrap around our minds. It begins with understanding that our own self-criticism, guilt, and endless comparisons act like invisible shackles. They keep us stuck in a spiral of doubt and fear, making every step forward feel heavier than the last. Yet, awareness is the first key. The moment you recognize the harsh voice whispering, "Not good enough," you give yourself the power to question its truth. Think about Rahul, a young graphic designer who once believed he had talent. Fresh out of college, he landed a promising project that could launch his career. He poured his creativity into each design, adding colors, shapes, and fonts with love. But then came the client's feedback. "This feels amateur. I expected better." In that instant, Rahul's confidence cracked. He heard a new inner critic rise. "You're not good enough," it hissed. With every new project, that critic grew louder. "What if they hate this too?" he'd ask. And then, why even try? Before he knew it, Rahul avoided ambitious work, settling instead for safe, bland designs that felt as empty as his hope. This pattern is all too human. We build great castles of dreams, but one negative comment can plant doubt at the foundation. Our minds replay every mistake in high definition. The awkward presentation, the forgotten word, the friend's disappointed look. Each memory is like a pebble dropped into a well, creating ripples that widen into rings of worry. We call it guilt when we feel ashamed of something done wrong. We call it regret when we long for a chance to act differently. But both guilt and regret, unchecked, become weighty stones in our backpacks, making every journey uphill nearly impossible. Then there's toxic comparison. In today's world of social media highlights and filtered realities, It is easy to believe that everyone else has it better. She has more followers, we think. He travels more. They earn more, look happier, live brighter. But comparison is a thief. It steals joy by measuring your real messy life against someone else's polished highlight reel. While you scroll, your mind whispers, "Why not me?" And then, "There must be something wrong with me." Before long, you feel small, unworthy of your own dreams. Chapter 2 teaches us that breaking these chains starts with self-distancing, stepping outside your own mind to observe the critic at work. Imagine sitting in a movie theater, watching your thoughts play on the big screen. You see the critic's voice as a character, not as your truth. When that character says, "You can't do this," you gently remind yourself, that's just a thought. This small act of observing, rather than believing, creates a gap where you can choose a kinder, truer response. Next, we practice honest self-talk. Instead of letting the inner critic script your story, you become the author of a new dialogue. When the critic snarls, "You'll fail," you reply, "Maybe I'll fail this time, but I will learn something important." When guilt nags, "You should have done better," you answer, "I did my best with what I knew then, and I will keep growing." Honest self-talk is like offering your mind a gentle hug. It soothes the fear and opens space for courage to grow. Let's return to Rahul. One morning, he caught himself shrinking away from a challenging brief. He paused, noticed his clenched jaw, and took a slow breath. In his mind, he placed the critic on one side, sharp words and harsh labels, and on the other side, a calm, kind voice he invited in. "I can learn from this," he told himself. "I won't let one rejection define me." That day, Rahul sketched freely without judgment, focusing on ideas instead of outcomes. With each line he drew, the critic's roar softened into a murmur. Alongside self-distancing and honest self-talk, Chapter 2 recommends daily rituals to keep your mind healthy. One simple practice is a thought inventory. Before bed, take a notebook, write down every negative thought that surfaced during the day, and then next to each, jot a gentle rebuttal. This ritual shines a flashlight into the dark corners of your mind, so those shadows no longer scare you. Over time, you train yourself to spot harmful patterns early, before they grow into bigger worries. Another practice is gratitude journaling, listing 3 things each morning you are grateful for. Gratitude is a powerful counterweight to negativity. When you recognize even small joys, a warm cup of tea, a friend's laughter, a moment of sunshine, you signal to your brain that life holds goodness too. Gradually, your mind shifts from scanning for threats to noticing blessing. This does not erase challenges. It simply balances your perspective. Chapter 2 also explores the role of community in breaking mental chains. Negative self-talk often flourishes in isolation. When we hide our doubts, we feed them in secret. But when we share, perhaps with a trusted friend or mentor, we discover that others have the same critical voices. Together, you can challenge harsh beliefs and remind each other of your worth. In a supportive community, guilt loses its power, and comparison eases as you celebrate each other's progress instead of competing. Of course, there will be setbacks. Maybe you slip back into old patterns after a tough day. Maybe the critic's voice returns louder than before. That is not failure. It is part of the process. Every time you notice and redirect, you strengthen your mental muscle. Picture a forest after a fire. At first, the charred trees stand bare, but soon, green shoots appear. Your mind works the same way. Resilience grows in the soil of challenge. By the end of Chapter 2, you realize that breaking the chains of negativity is an ongoing craft. It requires patience, persistence, and compassion for yourself. You learn to celebrate small victories, a moment of calm when the critic's voice faded, a page of confident writing instead of blank hesitation, a heartfelt "thank you," replacing "I'm not good enough." Each victory loosens a link in those chains until, gradually, they fall away. As you move forward, keep this mantra close. I am not my thoughts. You are the awareness beyond the chatter. You are the light that shines through clouds of doubt. And with each breath, each pause, each kind word you offer yourself, you reclaim more of your true power. The path to freedom begins in the mind, where every thought can become an ally instead of an enemy. So, dear listener, embrace Chapter 2 as your guide to inner liberation. Observe your critic without fear. Speak to yourself with honesty and kindness. Practice nightly inventories and morning gratitude. Lean on community when shadows gather. And remember, every step, no matter how small, is a triumph over the chains that once held you. Let your heart rise above the noise, and let your spirit soar in the fresh air of self-compassion and courage. Chapter 3. The Growth Mindset. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to welcome challenges, viewing each setback not as a defeat, but as the beginning of something new? Chapter 3 opens a door to this very idea. The growth mindset, a way of living where every mistake becomes a lesson, every difficulty becomes an opportunity, and every "I can't" whispers, "Not yet." Imagine your mind as a garden. A fixed mindset treats every failure like frost, killing off budding dreams before they can bloom. A growth mindset, by contrast, sees frost as a sign to cover young plants with care and to learn which seeds grow best in cold. In this chapter, we meet Deepak, an ordinary young man from a modest background whose life transformed when he chose to water his garden of potential with effort rather than fear. Deepak grew up believing that his accent, his simple clothes, and his shy smile were barriers he could never overcome. In school, he stayed silent during English classes, worried that his words would betray him. He watched classmates speak with confidence, and he told himself, "I am just not a speaker. I am not good enough." That belief stuck to him like a heavy coat in summer, uncomfortable, and yet he refused to take it off. Then one day, he encountered a poster, "Join our youth leadership conference. Speak your truth." Something inside him stirred. He felt a flutter of fear. What if he stammered? And a spark of hope. What if he surprised himself? He registered, heart pounding, and on the day of the event he stood backstage, hands sweaty, wondering what he had done. When his turn came, he walked to the microphone as if through quicksand. Each step felt impossible. His throat tightened, and he heard his inner voice shout, "You can't do this." But then he remembered a simple idea. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. He took a deep breath, let his guard down, and began to speak. At first, his words tumbled out slowly, as if through molasses, but with every line he felt lighter. The audience listened, and when he finished, they applauded. In that moment, Deepak tasted something sweeter than any victory, the power that comes from trying, regardless of the outcome. He realized that ability is not fixed at birth, like eye color. It grows with care, practice, and courage. Back home, Deepak decided to practice speaking every day. He looked in the mirror each morning and spoke for 5 minutes about anything, a news event, a favorite memory, or even a silly joke. Some days his voice shook. Some days he felt proud. He recorded himself, listened back, and noted one thing to improve. Then, he tried again. This daily ritual was like watering a plant. You might not see growth overnight, but each drop counted. Soon, he joined a local Toastmasters club, where members gave kind feedback and celebrated each other's progress. He felt his shoulders straighten, his words flow, and his confidence build, one block at a time. But Chapter 3 goes beyond public speaking. It shows that a growth mindset applies to every part of life. Learning a musical instrument, starting a business, mastering a new recipe, or even repairing a bike. The core idea is simple. When you believe you can grow, you persist through challenges instead of quitting. You ask, "What can I learn from this?" rather than saying, "I failed, so I must be bad." You replace, "I'm not smart enough," with, "What strategies can I try next?" This shift transforms obstacles into stepping stones. To support this shift, the chapter introduces brain dumping, a practice where you release worries and doubts onto paper. Before bed, Deepak wrote down every anxious thought. What if I freeze on stage? What if nobody cares? What if I embarrass myself? Then he asked, "What can I do about each concern?" and scribbled simple steps. Practice once more. Remember past successes. Breathe slowly before speaking. As he emptied his mind, sleep came easier, and his confidence grew because he no longer carried worries like stones in his pockets. Next comma, the chapter teaches embracing discomfort as a teacher. Deepak learned that growth rarely happens in comfort zones. Like muscles that strengthen through resistance, our character and skills expand when we face what scares us. He applied for a TEDx talk, not because he felt ready, but because he knew that preparing for it would push him to refine his ideas, to practice speaking with purpose, and to confront self-doubt head-on. The preparation was grueling. He wrote and rewrote his speech, rehearsed alone, then in front of friends, adjusted his pacing, and battled nerves until he could stand on stage with a steady heartbeat. When he finally delivered his TEDx talk, he spoke not as someone who had mastered the art, but as someone on a journey, someone whose courage inspired others to step beyond their own comfort. Throughout Chapter 3, we learn that failure is not the opposite of success, but a vital part of it. Every no brings you closer to a yes. Every mistake uncovers a lesson, and every stumble sharpens your focus. The chapter invites you to keep 3 simple mantras in mind: yet, learn, and persist. Add yet to any limiting thought. I can't do this yet. Replace I failed with I learned how not to do it. When you feel like quitting, remind yourself, I will persist one more time. By the end of the chapter, Chapter 4, Psychological Strategies for Letting Go. Have you ever carried an invisible backpack, heavy with old hurts, silent regrets, and stories that no longer serve you? Chapter 4 guides you through 4 powerful psychological strategies that help unpack this weight, heal hidden wounds, and rewrite the narrative of your life. These methods, externalization, self-compassion, narrative rewriting, and mindful release, are simple to practice, yet they bring profound shifts in how you feel, think, and move forward. Let's explore each step in gentle, clear language so that when you hear these words spoken by a warm, motivational AI voice, your heart and mind both understand exactly how to set yourself free. First comma, meet externalization, the art of observing emotions as passing clouds, not fixed facts. Imagine you are standing by a window on a rainy day. You see dark clouds rolling in, heavy with water. You feel the cold drops on the glass, but you do not become the cloud. You are the watcher, safely inside. In the same way, when anger, shame, or fear arise, you name them. I notice anger. I feel shame. I sense fear. By labeling your emotion, you gently hold it at arm's length. You move from I am angry to anger is present. This tiny shift gives you breathing room. You no longer identify with the emotion but observe it. You realize that, like weather, emotions come and go. Some days bring storms, others clear skies. You learn to carry an umbrella rather than carry the storm within you. Each time you notice a name, you weaken the chains that tie you to old pain. Next comes self-compassion, a practice as vital as water to a thirsty plant. Too often we offer kindness to friends but judge ourselves harshly. We speak gentle words to another's sorrow. It's okay, you did your best. Yet when we stumble, our inner critic shouts, how could you be so stupid? Self-compassion. Finally, practice mindful release, a simple ritual that anchors all the previous steps into daily life. Choose a quiet moment, morning, evening, or any time you need a reset. Sit comfortably, close your eyes, and take 3 deep breaths. With each inhale, gather the emotion or thought you wish to release. With each exhale, imagine gently letting it go, like blowing a dandelion seed into the air or floating a paper boat down a calm stream. You can visualize the unwanted thought or feeling as a shape, color, or word dissolving as it drifts away. You might say silently, I release anger, or I let go of shame, or I free myself from regret. Notice how your body shifts. Perhaps your shoulders drop, your jaw relaxes, your chest feels lighter. Even if the emotion returns later, meet it again with the same ritual. Observe, name, compassionate self-talk, and release. Over weeks and months, you will find that the backpack feels lighter and the path ahead clearer. Chapter 4 closes by reminding you that these strategies are not quick fixes, but lifelong companions. You will almost certainly revisit old wounds, meet new ones, and find fresh stories to rewrite. Yet each time you practice externalization, self-compassion, narrative rewriting, and mindful release, you strengthen the muscles of freedom within your mind. You learn that healing is not linear but a spiral, sometimes circling back, but always rising a little higher. You discover that beneath the weight of regret and fear lies your true self, curious, resilient, and ready to embrace life with renewed courage. So, dear listener, as these words settle in your heart, remember, You are not broken beyond repair. You carry the tools to heal, to transform, and to thrive. When your mind storms, be the calm observer. When your heart aches, be the kind friend. When old stories haunt you, be the brave author. And when burdens feel. Chapter 5. Moving beyond the hurt. Have you ever felt your heart break so deeply that it seemed impossible to heal? In Chapter 5, Moving Beyond the Hurt, we step into that tender place where pain lives and learn how to gently set it free. This chapter is a guide in simple, caring language to help you reclaim your life after loss, betrayal, or rejection. Through the real-life stories of Rohit and Sushma, we discover 4 essential steps: forgiveness for release, not for approval; perspective-taking; boundary setting; and choosing healing over resentment. Each step is a brick in the bridge that carries you from victim to narrator of your own story. Rohit's story begins with a love that felt perfect. Late-night calls, surprise gifts, shared dreams of a future together. Then, without warning, she stopped answering. No explanation, no warning, just silence. Every day, Rohit opened WhatsApp, stared at the last scene, and waited. Weeks turned into months. His heart ached. His mind spun wild theories. What did I do wrong? Did she ever love me? Will I ever trust again? Inside him, guilt whispered, "It must be your fault." And anger roared, "How could she do this?" Rohit tried to move on. He started a new job, made friends, joined a gym. Outwardly, he looked fine. But at night, the unanswered questions returned like ghosts, heavy and cold. The hurt grew until it felt like his only companion. Sushma's journey was different, but just as painful. Trapped in an abusive relationship, she endured words that cut deeper than knives. "You're worthless. No one else will want you. I'll make you regret leaving me." She escaped with bruises on her body and deeper scars on her heart. Even after she left, her abuser's voice echoed in her mind. She doubted her own worth. She blamed herself for staying too long. Friends and family cheered her bravery, but inside, Sushma felt broke. Once forgiveness opens the door, perspective-taking strengthens our healing. This means stepping into the other person's shoes, not to justify their hurtful actions, but to see the situation with fresh eyes. Rohit imagined his ex-partner under her own pressures, worries he never knew, fears she never shared. He realized her silence might not have been cruelty but confusion or fear. This view didn't erase his pain, but it softened the edges. He understood that holding on to anger kept him locked in her story. Letting go of that anger allowed him to write his own. Sushma used perspective-taking to see her abuser as a wounded person acting from fear and pain. This did not excuse his violence, but it helped her separate his pain from her identity. She began to understand that his words were not truths about her worth, but projections of his own wounds. With this shift, her shame turned into compassion for herself, and surprisingly, a tiny spark of compassion for him. This spark did not mean reconciliation. It meant that she no longer carried his hatred as part of her own soul. The third step is boundary setting, creating clear, loving limits that protect your peace. Forgiveness and perspective help you heal inwardly. Boundaries help you heal outwardly. Rohit decided to close old channels of contact. He unfollowed her on social media, deleted her number, and chose not to revisit their chat history. Instead of hoping for ghost texts, he spent time with friends who uplifted him. Each boundary was a shield, gently saying, "Here is where I stop reliving the past and start embracing my present." Sushma's boundaries were firmer. She changed her phone number, blocked his messages and calls, and sold the home they once shared. She informed close friends about her need for space, so if he tried to contact her, they would support her in not responding. She even chose a new route to. And that's it for today's journey, friends. If the art of letting go spoke to your heart, give this video a thumbs up, share it with someone who needs a little light, and drop a comment below. Tell me which step you're ready to practice first. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss our weekly soul-fueling stories and tips. Stay courageous, keep growing, and remember, every day is a new chance to write your next chapter. I'll see you in the comments and in the next video. Until then, keep letting go, keep breathing deeply, and keep shining bright.